Take 8.
Hello and welcome to another presentation from In the Money Media. I'm Nahum IKP Mike Pribozie in for a special roundtable, JRA roundtable for the Japan Cup. And the Japan Cup is this weekend. So we wanted to get together here and do a roundtable discussion for this major race. So we have all the JRA major players here with me, starting with Mr. JRA himself from Canada, hanging out, Klaus Ebner up at Woodbine, I think. You up at Woodbine, Klaus?
I'm in my office at Woodbine, yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Also joining me is a regular contributor here for the JRA segments, Alex Henry, back with us here for ITM for the Japan Cup.
Thanks for having me. Super excited. And I have a special hoodie on today. If you know the last horse who won the Arlington Million, who ran in the Japan Cup, everyone gets a beer. So I think you can guess it.
I wish I had merch. I got my Breeders' Cup on, but no. I need to get Klaus to get me some JRA stuff for. Also joining us, Alan Carasso, certainly a contributor for TDN and lots of knowledge of pedigree and certainly knowledge of JRA. So welcome, Alan.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Well, it looks like a stellar race here this year again for the Japan Cup. Last year we had the Phenom Equinox winning the Japan Cup, but this year 2,400 meter Grade 1 turf event, international field, Klaus, set for this Japan Cup, and such a rich history for the Japan Cup. Lots of American involvement, international involvement, really one of the big events, especially on the Japan calendar every year.
Yeah, certainly. And this year's actually really, if we want to talk about international flavor, this is really a year that's going to see a lot of international flavor. And I think, again, I'm sure that the team also agrees here, but really this is the cream of the crop in regards to some of the top European horses. You know, traditionally we'll see top European horses go to the Breeders' Cup. We'd see probably Group 2, Group 3, or horses that are kind of this, Japan Cup maybe an afterthought just because of the money alone and the bonuses they're offering. But, this year having probably I'd say the 3 best European horses at 1.5 miles in the Japan Cup this year is amazing. So, and to add to that, the flavor you have for the locals should be a stellar rendition.
Alan, I know that the Japanese horses have dominated recently, but this international group here really could threaten that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously we're missing a blue stocking, so I guess she probably belongs in the discussion among Europe's top 2,400 meter gallopers. But outside of her, it's hard to knock the 3 that are signed on. Auguste Rodin is brilliant at his best. He's questionable at his worst. Goliath is being obviously ambitiously campaigned by our U.S.-based Resolute Racing and partners. And I actually, I'm not going to display my hand too much right now, but I'm actually going to tip the 3rd of the Europeans to outfinish the other 2, and that's Fantastic Moon. Has nothing to do, Klaus, with my Fließend Deutsch. It really doesn't, I promise you.
Well, Alex, your thoughts here, especially that a lot of big money on the line. You have the Japanese contingent. You certainly have, the shippers coming in. This should be another one of these. We talked these last couple of weeks of these Grade 1 races in Japan, another wide open event.
It should be, but I have some pretty strong opinions. But, I've been proven wrong before. Let's just say 18 years is a long time to be without a foreign winner, but we'll see.
Well, talk about, I was talking to you guys off air a little bit, just about some of the history of the Japan Cup. And I was, letting, just kind of remembering a lot of the old Japan Cups and over the years that would show up on TVG. And I was a fan of thoroughbred racing here in America, but that Japan Cup, always would come right around this time of year, and it will always spark my attention, and just the amount of, top horses that would just go over there and just unbelievable races over the years, Klaus, horses like Singspiel, horses like Deep Impact, those are superstars, almost generational talents.
Certainly, yeah. And again, you mentioned a few of them there. from a personal note, I loved as a, I'm not dating myself here, but as a teenager watching Singspiel running the Canadian International here, and then he ran in the Breeders' Cup, and then seeing him on the world stage, and then he went out to win the Dubai World Cup. So certainly, yeah, he was a stellar, amazing horse on both surfaces, and as you mentioned, yeah, Deep Impact, he was pretty much the one horse who everyone in Japan knows and loves, and has left a stamp on the breed in Japan as well.
Well, Alan, you mentioned you had a story, from a previous, the 2002 Japan Cup. So let us in on that.
Yeah, so that year the race was conducted not over 2,400 meters, but 2,200 meters, and it was relocated to Nakayama. And I was a giant fan of Falbrov. I had the biggest bet of my life on Falbrov in the Breeders' Cup that year. It was a whole $75 bet on Falbrov, and that was the year that Johar and High Chaparral did dead heated, and Falbrov was beaten half ahead.
Yeah,
so just a disgusting beat. So my friend and I, we found a way to each have 20 pounds on Falbrov for that year's Japan Cup. It was Frankie Dettori riding for Luca Camani, so you had this Italian connection. In the race was a horse called Seraphin, who was actually West Coast based for Gary Tanaka. And I'm desperate to find a feed. This is 2002, for God's sake. So, video, forget about it. I was listening through a crackling feed on the Hong Kong Jockey Club website as these two horses are coming to settle the race, nip and tuck, head and head. Then there's an inquiry that lasts forever, and finally our number gets put up. So that, giant Falbrov fan from time to, he won a Group 1 in Italy in like 157-4 going 2000, and he's just a freak of nature. One of the best Hong Kong Cup winners you'll ever see. But I guess from that point on, the Japan Cup has sort of been sort of a soft spot for me.
Yeah, one thing I think I remember about Falbrov was he was a pretty game animal. Like he didn't like to get past. He definitely liked to fight for it. And horses like that always make an impression for sure. Alex, think about your history, like of watching the Japan Cup over the years, and some of the highlights that you have.
Absolutely. Well, I just wanted to say I wanted to pay tribute today to a horse that's near and dear to my family's heart. One of my grandfather's favorite horses, John Henry, who raced. He did not win. He finished 13th, but he did race in the Japan Cup, and that's why I have the Arlington gear on today. Just to represent a million winner. But Half Iced won in 1982 and beat him handily. But some memories I have in my lifetime, oh my goodness, Deep Impact is my absolute favorite of all time. I didn't even see the feed live. I was just a video game fan back in 2006. Didn't even know where to find racing beyond TVG. Couldn't even stay up that late to watch the race. But he's just watching that replay in 06. It just gives me goosebumps. I wish I saw it live. Of the live renditions I've seen, Kita-san Black, he just a hunk of a horse. Gorgeous mover. Yutaka Take just guided him to a killer victory. Almond Eye, our filly, she won it twice, won it 2018, and then 2 years later as a 5-year-old in 2020. So I mean, I don't know how many. I think the last repeat before her was Gentle Donna, I think, right, in the 2010s. So just a fantastic race mare. I have a big plushie of her behind me, in addition to many that Klaus has very kindly brought home from his travels in Japan. Thank you again, Klaus. But and then Contrail, he's on my backpack when I travel. I have a Contrail little mini plushie, and people ask, like, what is that? Is that a horse? I was like, yeah, let me tell you about him. Like an Equinox. I have a plushie of him too in my gym bag. Like, these are just really great memories. Memories where I definitely didn't go to bed angry that night after watching racing, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, I remember especially watching Almond Eye. I mean, that was one that for her to win at 3 and then turn around and win at 5 was just, quite amazing to me. And of course, Equinox last year. I mean, what a freak that horse is. Just the way he dominated his races just all over the world. He was really just something like hard to even imagine how good a horse that he was. Well, look at this year's race a little bit. And we discussed a little to start some of the horses that are going to be involved, Klaus, but it looks like perhaps maybe there's going to be several that vie for favoritism. I'm sure a lot of people will be familiar with Auguste Rodin, but who do you think is going to end up the favorite in this spot?
Well, I think it's a two-part question, Mike, because you're gonna have to ask yourself who's the favorite in Japan when they race in Japan, and then the second question is who's the favorite in our pools here in North America. So that's why I think I have two different answers for you in that sense. So I do feel that in Japan, Do Deuce will be going off as the favorite in Japan just because he's the local horse, and people will kind of see the blistering turn of foot he had in winning the Tenno Sho autumn last time out. But I do have a sneaky suspicion that in our North American pools that Goliath and or Auguste Rodin will be vying for favoritism here in North America. So that's what I think. Again, I could be totally wrong. It could be looking at Do Deuce as well here in North America, but just based upon our players and those that kind of maybe dipping their toes into the water for the first time playing Japan, knowing that Japan Cup's on the weekend, they're going to know those guys. Obviously, Auguste Rodin was the Breeders' Cup turf winner last year. So that's going to mean, well, that's a horse I know, the class is there. So again, my gut feeling is that either Auguste Rodin or Goliath will be the favorite here in North America.
Alan, what's your take on some of the odds with the U.S. pools versus the Japanese pools? I mean, and different jockeys and things that maybe catch eyes, catch money over here. Sometimes it can be a little different than the betting over there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think at the end of the day, it opens up some opportunities for some overlaid prices on some really good horses. So if in fact people go hook, line, and sinker for Goliath or even Auguste Rodin, that increases the prices incrementally on the others in there. And there are horses in here. I mean, the Japanese horses maybe as a group are not as strong as previous years, but Do Deuce is a very good horse. I think Justin Palace, we might get to him in a few minutes. I think he's a very sneaky horse. Cervinia is going to have her fair share of backers as well. So as the prices go down on horses that maybe should not be that low, there's going to be a sort of a corresponding increase in prices for some other horses, and that definitely opens some betting opportunities.
Alex, I know you mentioned last week some of the alternate websites and things that you tend to look at whenever you're wagering on these Japanese JRA races. Do you compare some of those odds there and some of the things that are on those sites? Obviously, you must with the U.S. pools, the Canadian pools that we're betting into.
Absolutely. I find that netkeba.com, that's one of my favorite, netkeba.jp /en. If you want the English version. The Japanese version is better. Just whip out Google Translator, Safari, Firefox Translate, and you get the job done. I find their odds are pretty solid. Now, it seems like our US pools, it takes a little while. It takes until about a couple minutes before post time. I'm not saying I know why that is. Perhaps some certain analyst work people are deciding to trust late before the race starts. But anyway, I would like to say that our pools do kind of mirror the Japanese pools. Now, when you kind of get to the 4th, 5th, 6th favorite on up, you can catch some really good prices on the U.S. pools. I've had some experiences where a horse went off like 5 or 6 to 1 equivalent in Japan on my websites, and then I got like 20 to 1 on them, which is amazing. That happens sometimes. Another site that I like to use that has a unique component of the odds look is humanity.jp /en. Now, the English version of this website is actually excellent. They have, not only do they have the JRA odds, but they actually have fan odds. So these are fans that are choosing their favorite horse and making their own picks. And so that's a really interesting pool. It's not a real pool, but it's like a mythical pool that mirrors the actual odds. But there have been several times on a single card where the fan favorite will win. And I'm like, well, that horse was 9 to 1 in the US and 6 to 1 in Japan, equivalent odds. Like, how the heck did that happen? The fans just knew it. So that's another really sneaky component. I believe that's available on the free version of the website as well. So check that out.
Now, Alex, I know that you are putting together a lot of multi-leg wagers. So in that vein, really checking out those things ahead of time and looking for those possible overlays, those possible horses that'll play well, especially in those exotic pools, is a huge advantage.
Yes, and I do. If we have time at the very end, I have one horse to lean on in an earlier race, race 9, but only if we have time. This would be a spread race. The Japan Cup is definitely a spread race for me.
We always have time for your prices, Alex, on these podcasts. Well, Klaus, let's, as PTF says, this is where the rubber meets the road. He says, let's put your feet to the fire. So let's analyze this year's race. Give us who you like in the Japan Cup for this year.
Well, this is kind of my heart and my head in terms of my selection right off the bat. So, I'm going to actually go with Blow the Horn. So this is a horse who really, they had no excuse for this horse who, if you look at his form lines, he finished dead last as a favorite last time out. But in doing some research for me, I actually realized that this prep race, this grade 2 Kyoto race that he ran in as his prep race to this, his first start back after a layoff. This time, that race last year in 2023, he also pulled up in the race and had a heart problem. So the fact that the same race 2 years in a row he's had problems with kind of means to me, well, again, I'll just throw it out. But looking back at his form lines, he was the winner of the Takarazuka Keenan. Yes, it was over a bit of a bog at 2,200, beating Do Deuce and a few others in there that day. There's lots for me to like. His dad won this race in 2014. I loved his dad that day at a price. I think he'll be a good price here in this race. He could drift up to maybe 15, 20 to 1 in this race based off his last for being 11th. And just the fact that, people may not be a fan of his form line, finishing 11th of 11 horses last time out. So, I think for me, that's going to be the big one. I love his draw. I know Al and I were kind of bantering a little bit on social media early this afternoon about our picks, but if you look at the stats, again, I love the stats. I'm a big stats guy in regards to horse racing. And out of the past 20 years, the inside draws, let's say the inside 4 posts have almost scored at anywhere from 15 to 20% strike rate. So that bodes well if you like horses like Blow the Horn or, Goliath or even Justin Palace, who's in the 4 holes. So again, lots of like there, but for me, I'm going to be a bit of a price in the form of Blow the Horn.
Alan, do you agree with Klaus here, or are you looking elsewhere?
I mean, I'm gonna go elsewhere. I mean, for me, the post position thing is sort of lesser importance. I mean, it takes a seriously good horse to win the Japan Cup. So when you look back at the history, the world history, and you see the Almond Eyes and Epiphanes and General Donna and Vodka and Deep Impact, those are good horses, and they're going to win whether they're drawn 2 or 22. So to me, the draw isn't that big of a deal. I'm actually going to focus on Justin Palace. I thought he ran an outstanding race in the Tenno Sho over a trip that's probably short of his best. Now, he's a Group 1 winner going even further than this. So the 2,400 may not be his optimal trip, but he should get some pace to run at. He is drawn low, so in terms of the trip he's going to sit, he should sit a good trip. They're going to go a good gallop. The Japanese races are always truly run. They're going to go a good gallop, and it's just a matter of picking and so sort of slaloming through there in the stretch like he did in the Tenno Sho. He got home really, really well. I mean, for a horse that stays 2 miles, he finished 33 flat his final 600, and that takes some doing for a stayer. So I like him, and like I said earlier, I'm picking Fantastic Moon to finish the best out of him, Goliath, and Auguste Rodin. You just don't know what you're going to get with Auguste Rodin, whether the Ascot version of him is going to show up, the Leopardstown version, or the Maidan version. You just don't know what he's going to get, and he has to be in the right mood, and he's had to travel. It's been a longish season, iffy. And for Goliath, I mean, I've had people tell me on social media that he's going to romp. I think Goliath is a good horse. I think Goliath has sat some pretty soft trips in the victories he's rung up this year. He couldn't win the Hardwick, which theoretically is a race he should have won. And then, he blew them away in the King George. He beat Blue Stocking, so full marks for that. Rebel's Romance was good, not great that day. Auguste Rodin flopped back through the field. His race last time was run at a hack canter, and he quickened up better than the rest of them. I'm very, very opposed to Goliath, and I'm sure I'll eat those words at some point. But us horse players, we take stands, and I'm taking a stand against Goliath.
Well, Alex, I would probably be a 4 on the Goliath front, but are you against?
You know, so much against as I don't really understand why his odds are so high. That doesn't really give me a lot of confidence. It tells me that the Japanese public isn't really for him. Currently on NetCaba, he's sitting at 20.1 decimal odds.
Wow.
So I mean that's pretty tepid. He's between Dereza and Blow the Horn, which no offense, Klaus. I do like Blow the Horn too. But that doesn't really give me as much confidence as that 12.5 decimal odds does on Auguste Rodin. And I kind of dug in on his form. In Thurgraph, they have like the top or pair off, or top pair off. He pretty much he's pair off. So 2 paired top, good races with fast speed figs, like racing post speed figs, like 120s, like time form, like 120s, 122s. And then he has like a clunker, like, an 80 something or like a low 90s. And so he's at that second pair phase of his form cycle after, kind of finishing uninspiring, was it 5th, right? 2 races out, then finishing well last time out. And then now he's figures to at least finish well. So I'm expecting a place or a win here at least. I don't know how well he'll take to the ground. That is a big question mark, the shipping. But the fact that he is the most respected by the Japanese public of the foreign shippers gives me a bit of confidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite the race. Big field, tons of talent. I think it's hard to maybe even narrow it down to one horse. I would be for Goliath. I do think that form line does hold up well, especially that win in the King George, beating Blue Stocking, beating Rebels Romance, who galloped in the Breeders' Cup Turf. I mean, that form line to me, and the fact that they ship over here at those odds is almost irresistible to me, really. I mean, that's a huge price that I don't think he will necessarily be in these pools, but I do think that is worth a shot. The horse I would be against would be Auguste Rodin, just because I do think he's going to take more name recognition type money. And with the connections, I think that is a horse worth beating. Klaus, anyone else you'd like to use in multis in the race?
Yeah, certainly. I have a lot of horses I'll probably be using, and it's because, again, it's wide open. So, again, we can't look past the filly, and that's Cervinia. I think she's a really, really talented filly. 3-year-old fillies have done traditionally well, or at least fillies that have exited the Shuka Show. And we've talked about Almondine and a few others that have come and shred their stuff. She gets in light, which is one thing as a 3-year-old filly. The fact that she's 2 for 3. She's won 2 races at Tokyo. She won the Oaks actually in a faster time than the boys ran, 1.5 miles this year. So she's the real deal. I don't like her because she beat Stellenbosch. I love Stellenbosch, and she beat Stellenbosch that day, but I'll digress. But anyways, at the end of the day, she's a quality filly. I'll include her. And again, as I mentioned before, because of the odds and the way we have the foreign horses in here, we may see her drift up to, maybe double digits possibly, or high single digits. That'd be pretty juicy for me. And I probably wouldn't be able to resist a few bets on that one for her. And another horse I really think may kind of sneak under the radar that I think is better than his form lines, and that's Dereza. So Dereza is a 4-year-old colt. He's 2 for 2 at Tokyo. He ran 5th in that race last time at the City of Troy. Well, he just was beaten into 5th or 4th by Blue Stocking, who went on to win the Arc that day in that race. So again, there's some form lines in terms of reference there that I think I can look at. I'm not going to hold his race in the Tenno Sho Spring against him. He kind of finished 13th, didn't have Lemaire on him that day. So again, I just think he's one's kind of sneaky. I'm not saying he can win the race, but I think that he'll run his best race, and we'll see what he does on the weekend. Again, another horse will be double digits probably in odds.
Anyone else you want to name check here?
Yeah, I want to put out there, I am a giant fan of Stars on Earth. I might have I can't remember if I tipped her last year or not, but I mean, she ran a great race last year to be 3rd. I mean, she's always there or thereabouts until this year's Shima Classic, and she just didn't go on with it in the straight. But if you check her form lines, if we're going to focus on form lines, I mean, she's being a half length into second by Do Deuce in the Irish-bred. She's beaten 5 by Equinox. She's just beaten by Songline, top miler in the Victoria Mile last year. She got beat a Zop by Jack Dorr, 2,000 meter specialist in the Osaka High last year. I mean, she has knocked heads with some of Japanese, some of the best Japanese males, and come up just short. She's one of the unluckier fillies I can remember. Now, if her last is an aberration, which I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, I don't see why she couldn't run into the frame here at some giant numbers. Nobody's going to give her a chance to win. She's going to be 25 or 30 to 1 in the win pool. I don't think it's the craziest idea that she could run up into third.
Alan, no issue with the 8-month layoff, though?
I don't have any issue with it. I mean, these Japanese horses seem to defy those layoffs and rest. And I give them the benefit of the doubt if they think she's ready to come back in a race of this caliber. I'll sort of trust them on that.
Well, Alex, I know that you like you like your multis, but the vertical wagers also in this race definitely wide open. It would be, I think, something that people need to get involved with. So name check anybody else you want to, and then give us some thoughts on some of your wagers that you're going to look towards for Saturday night.
Yeah, I'm also on Stars on Earth as well. I plug the layoff question. So last year she ran in May 14th in the Victoria Mile Grade 1, same race at Soda she won a couple years ago. She ran the Japan Cup, so that was a 6-month layoff, and she finished third there. And she was a well-meaning third. It wasn't like a crappy third. It was a great third, I would say. So against Equinox. So I thought that she was meant very well. And then she turned back to run in the Irish-bred, as Alan said. She earned a 117 Netkeva speed time index for that race, which is the highest of any filly in the race on the scale. So if I'm going to bet the ladies, it's going to be her. It's going to be Cervinia. Definitely, Klaus, I'm all on her. She'd be a Triple Crown winner if she was able to have a prep before the Oka show, in my opinion. But we'll see about that. Maybe disagree. But I like her chances. I like her upward progression and her time figures as well. Again, just to put in perspective, our team has kind of figured that these Netkeva time indexes are roughly 8 to 10 points higher than Bayer figures. So, subtract at will. So she won the Japanese Oaks this May. She received a 101 on Netkeva. Then she turned back, in October to win the Shuka show, the last leg of the Philly Triple Crown. She earned a 114. So she has that nice upward trajectory. She has tons of upside as a 3-year-old by Harbinger out of a King Kamehameha mare. I think that if she's right, she'll give him all they can get. And I know we didn't really talk too much about Do Deuce. Do Deuce must be in all of your multis horizontally and your horizontal wagers as well. He's just class. He's the only horse Japanese horse in the race, I believe, that's won 4 Grade 1s. So I don't think any other Japanese horse has approached that. I think Auguste Rodin has won 6. He's a 6-time Group 1 or Grade 1 winner. So, Do Deuce is and as a tennis fan, as a tennis player, we got to have tennis reference. He's pure class. His highest speed figure is looking at, it's 118. He earned in the Irish-bred last year in December, and last out winning the Tenno Sho Autumn, he received a 110. So a little light on that figure, but he won very well. He finished 32.5 for the last 3 furlongs. So he's a must include. If you want just a crazy price that I think will be ignored, what about Globetrotting Shin Emperor? This, horse tried his hand in the arc, was unsuccessful, finished 12th to Blue Stocking. Went to Leopardstown for the Champion Stakes, finished 3rd with Sakai in the irons. Then before that was in the Japanese Derby, finished 3rd. So he has class and he has back class. He's not a Grade 1 winner, but he's a hard trier when the ground suits him. I guess I have to check the forecast for Tokyo. Are we expecting rain? If there's no rain in the forecast, if it's good or firm, I would expect him to perform well too at a price.
I was checking through a couple other things today, and I know that they're going to have coverage of this Japan Cup on FS2. So on Saturday late at nights, I think it's from 1 to 2:30 on FS2. So if you're awake, jump in and check out that coverage. Certainly, I think if you've listened to this podcast, you've gotten plenty of ideas to get involved with this Japan Cup. So we're going to give everybody a chance. Little final thoughts here for Saturday nights, this Japan Cup. Klaus, it looks as wide open as any race maybe all year.
Yeah, it's going to be a competitive race. This is much like, any race you'd see in North America with a large field, and at least the pool should be half decent for us. And to answer Alex's question is because of the size of the pool. That's all, is in terms of why the odds shift so much in terms of what we have. So I wish we had Japanese pools here, but because we have our North American pools are not that size, and yes, we can get $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in a win pool, but the late money comes in late, and it sometimes kicks you in the butt. So yeah, it's not great, but again, I think like I said, if you like a horse, you should get a price on the horse. That's how it's a 14 horse field. So no matter who you like, you're going to get somewhat half decent odds, even if it's the favorite. And for those that are kind of saying, well, it's a slam dunk for the Europeans. Well, I think a lot of people betting our North American pools thought Sharon last week was a slam dunk for the mile. And guess what? Finished 5th. So there we go. And you saw a pretty nice price on Soul Rush to win the race last week. So again, I think it's an example of you can get some good prices on the local horses if you want to, if you're so inclined to bet the Japanese instead.
Well, Alan, hopefully you'll have access to FS2 to catch this Japan Cup. Certainly you won't be limited with your signal. But final thoughts for the race this year.
Yeah, it's just always these melting pot sorts of races where you've got foreign invaders and you've got form through horses that have won other parts of the world, like Rebels Romance, and it just it brings all these form lines together, and it makes for an interesting and challenging handicapping sort of puzzle. And it's one of the world's greatest races, 955 million, or maybe even over $1 billion yen, which is north of $6 million. And I'll be curious to see how Goliath goes. He's also nominated to Hong Kong, and sometimes on occasion those horses back up on the 2 weeks and go over to Hong Kong. So on the one hand, I'd like to see Goliath go well, and he is part American owned. So I'd like, I could cheer for him from that angle, I suppose, but probably not. But it's just a fun race. It's a good reason to get up and have a cup of coffee at 1:30 in the morning here on the East Coast and watch world class horses go around for a mile and a half. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Alex, I know we have the picks will be up on inthemoneypodcast.com. Will you be tweeting out some Maltese? Give us your final thoughts for the weekend.
Absolutely. Thanks to Klaus and his amazing team through Woodbine. We do have an early and a late pick 5 on Japan Cup nights, 12 race card. So if you can stay awake, do your best. It'll be amazing, of course. Catch the FS2 coverage, give it support. If we give no matter your feelings on a news channel, if we give racing support, that's a positive thing for our sport. So I'll have it on, and even if I'm not listening to the analysis, I will definitely have it on and be supporting. I will be playing for sure the late pick 5. I will be spreading in this Japan Cup race. Must includes, I'll just give the must includes for right now. That may change. I will tweet it out. I'll add Do Deuce, Cervinia, Justin Palace. I'll add the top 5. Stars on Earth, Auguste Rodin. I'll probably skip to Goliath just in case, and Blow the Horn because he was mentioned here, and I don't want to be caught looking dumb. But I will probably single in the 9th race, and this was the pick I was kind of talking about. Listen, sometimes you can't get a price in your single, and you just got to take it and move on, and that's okay. There's a horse running called Shin Hananda. He's currently sitting as a 2.8 favorite, but it's close. There's another horse that's right on his heels at 2.9. 3-year-old son of Rey de Oro out of a War Emblem mare. And I saw that pedigree and I was like, oh my goodness, we remember War Emblem almost winning, the 2002 Triple Crown series. That was actually my first Triple Crown series where I was rooting for the silver-haired guy, and my family was all in. It was just an amazing Thoroughbred Corporation. The stripes, like I drew it on at kindergarten. They were like, "What are you drawing?" I was like, "Thoroughbred Corporation." They were like, "What's wrong with you?" But it just goes way back. I just have a soft spot on in my heart for War Emblem. You know, a shy breeder, only had a crop of 106 foals in Japan. I would love to see that blood continued, and this horse, through him, has really proven to be something special. Has the highest Netkiva time index at 98. He's 2 for 2, loves 2,000 meters, which is roughly 10 furlongs on the turf. I just hope he can come through, and I'm just gonna throw everything I got on him and single him as my heart and also as a logical bet.
Wow.
I just want to add one more horse that'll be of interest to the North American audience, is that in race 6, we have the debuting Rhino, 2-year-old colt by Into Mischief, first full out of Princess Noor, who won the Grade 1, the Delmar Debutante back in 2021 or 2020, one of those years, and then sold for a stack of cash at Facing Tipton in 2021. This is her first full, and he debuts over 1,800 on the grass in race 6, which is 10:15 Eastern time. So just for to get people hooked on 3+ hours ahead of the Japan Cup.
Yes, Rhino is his name. Great
Rhino,
Alan, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no better analysis than right here for this weekend and this Japan Cup card. Jump in, go to inthemoneypodcast.com, check out the picks, and there's programs there. You can get lots of analysis also on social media from Alex. She definitely jumps in and puts out those tickets and gives out lots of winners. So this has been really fantastic. Thank you guys for doing this. Everybody enjoy the Japan Cup this weekend. This has been a production of In the Money Media. I'm Mikey P. Mike Pribozie. Hopefully PTF will be back soon. He's resting his voice right now. So we'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the weekend.